It's 2039, and North America is suddenly on the edge of a conflict nobody ever thought could actually happen. We're skipping the politics and the how did we get here part and going straight to the main question. If Canada and Mexico attack the United States at the same time, what would really happen? The US is obviously the heavyweight. Over 1 million active duty troops, hundreds of 5th-generation fighters, and a growing fleet of early 6th-generation jets. Carriers and submarines on both coasts, the most advanced surveillance system on Earth, and we're not even counting the millions of armed civilians. Canada doesn't have US-level numbers, but its forces are modern and professional, around 80 to 90 F-35s. Canada's full modern fleet, upgraded Arctic brigades, strong artillery, and a capable but limited navy. They can hit hard, just not for long. Mexico has manpower, hundreds of thousands of troops and National Guard forces, plus a massive expansion of drones and light infantry. But its armor, air power, and logistics still lag far behind the US. So if Canada and Mexico ever did this, they wouldn't try to beat America in a long war. They try to shock it and hope they catch the US off balance. And that leads to 3 ways this could realistically play out. Scenario 1, the Alaska Gambit. If you're Canada, attacking the lower 48 makes no sense. Too many bases, too many troops, and too many highways the US can reinforce from. But Alaska is different. It's massive, thinly populated, and far from America's main forces. It relies on long roads, a few airfields, and one major oil pipeline, the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, which runs almost 800 miles and is hard to protect. If Canada wants to surprise the US anywhere, Alaska is the only place where the terrain helps them. So the conflict starts with Canada trying to isolate the state, not conquer it, just cut it up for a few days. Canadian F-35s fire long-range missiles at US radar and early warning sites, trying to knock out the sensors that watch Alaska's airspace. At the same time, Canada's Arctic brigades move through the Yukon towards towns like Tok and Delta Junction, the key entry points to Alaska's highway system. They don't need Anchorage or Fairbanks. They just need to cut roads that keep the state supplied. Small amphibious teams slip into the small coastal towns in southeast Alaska, the sheltered waterways known as the Inside Passage. Drone swarms fly low and try to damage parts of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline to force shutdowns. If they can create the headline Alaska Cut Off, that's already a win. And while what's happening in the north, Mexico hits the southern border with mass infiltration and drone saturation. Thousands of troops, National Guard units, and irregular fighters, militia-type groups that aren't part of Mexico's formal army, push across multiple points at once. San Diego, El Paso, Laredo, Nogales, and wide stretches of open desert. They're not going for cities. They're trying to overwhelm border defenses, blow up rail hubs, hit fuel depots, and make the southern border look out of control. Cheap drones and loitering munitions pound radar sites, bridges, and border checkpoints. For the first 24 hours, it works. Some ports of entry go offline. A few small towns near the Canadian border get cut off. News feeds explode with clips of Canadian armor in the snow and Mexican drones hitting targets along the Rio Grande. Then, Washington reacts. The US priority becomes simple. First air control, then sea control, then the borders. American fighters, F-35s, the remaining F-22s, and early 6th-generation NGAD jets flood both fronts. Canada's F-35 fleet is good, but tiny. They can't afford losses the way the US can. But Mexico's Air Force gets hit even faster. The US Navy traps most Canadian and Mexican ships in port. Submarines move into position. Within a couple of days, both neighbors lose the ability to operate aircraft or ships near US territory. Then, reinforcements start flying into Alaska. Long-range transport jets move in infantry, marines, artillery, drones, and armored vehicles faster than Canada can react. And once the US restores full air cover, the Canadian units that pushed into Alaska find themselves exposed, low on fuel, and cut off from their own support. In just a few days, the momentum flips. The Alaska front collapses completely. In the south, US forces push Mexican units back to their side of the border and begin hitting the launch sites and drone hubs that started the attack. Canada might isolate parts of Alaska for a short time. Mexico might overwhelm parts of the border, but none of it lasts. And once the US gets everything under control, they'd almost certainly hit back. And that would likely change the North American map as we know it. Scenario 2, the choke point plan. Instead of invading, Canada and Mexico could try something much smarter. Attack the infrastructure the US depends on. They know they can't beat the US military, but they can try to break the key lifelines of the US economy. Canada starts by hitting the most important cross-border choke points: the Detroit-Windsor bridges, the Niagara power connections, rail lines feeding the Midwest, and key substations that link the US electrical grid to Canadian hydro and nuclear power. Some special operations teams cut fiber optic lines and sabotage transformers, the kind of equipment that can take months to replace. Drone swarms harass shipping on the Great Lakes, spooking insurers into stopping traffic altogether. Mexico mirrors the strategy in the south. They hit the rail and truck hubs around Laredo, the busiest land port in the entire United States. They target refineries along the Texas coast, container yards near Brownsville and El Paso, and pipelines feeding fuel into the Southwest. Cyber attacks hit utilities. Drone swarms strike bridges, fuel depots, and storage tanks. And for a few days, it's rough. Border crossings shut down, parts of the power grid flicker. Some refineries pause operations. Markets panic. People see empty shelves and fuel shortages and wonder how long this is going to last. But once the US fully commits, the strategy falls apart fast. American airstrikes wipe out Canadian and Mexican drone depots, missile stockpiles, airfields, naval assets, and communications hubs. US Cyber Command hits back hard. Engineers repair damaged systems. And because the US economy and military-industrial base are much larger, America replaces losses far faster than Canada or Mexico can cause them. Both neighbors run out of precision weapons long before the US runs out of infrastructure to repair. A few weeks of disruption, and then nothing left on their end to keep the pressure going. Scenario 3, attack the lower 48. This is the wildest version. And while it shares the same shock attack idea as Scenario 1, Canada takes a very different approach here. This time, they don't go for Alaska. Canada pushes south out of British Columbia and crosses directly into Washington state. Their goal is simple: take Bellingham, a small but strategically placed border city, and cut sections of Interstate 5, the main north-south highway on the west coast. At the same time, Mexico launches a major push into Southern California and Arizona. Their units move toward Calexico and other border towns. Their objective is the same: cut parts of Interstates 8 and 10 while drone swarms hit radar sites, bases, and local infrastructure to slow the US response. For a short moment, this could work on a map. You could see small pockets of Canadian control near Seattle and small pockets of Mexican control near the Imperial Valley. Social media would go insane overnight with videos of foreign troops on American highways. But the second the US mobilizes, the whole thing falls apart. Airstrikes isolate both invasions. Artillery and armored brigades counterattack. Drone teams pick off anything that tries to move. Supply lines get shredded. Canadian and Mexican units start retreating or surrendering as US forces push forward with overwhelming numbers. Within a few days, every inch of US territory is back under American control. And then Washington decides whether to stop at the border or push slightly into Canada and Mexico to destroy the bases and staging areas that launched the attacks. Either way, this scenario ends quickly and badly for both neighbors. So who wins? Well, definitely not Canada nor Mexico. But don't get me wrong, they can surprise the US. They can hit hard in the first few hours. They can isolate Alaska for a moment or disrupt major infrastructure. They can cause panic and confusion. But they can't hold US territory. They can't match American air power or naval power. And they can't survive a long, high-intensity conflict. The United States wins militarily every single time. The only real question is, how much damage can Canada and Mexico do before they lose? If you want to see what happens if a civil war started right now, check out the video on your screen. Thanks for watching.